morning. Good morning. I am so excited. This is another episode of Pretty Good Coffee. And as you can see, I have my sissy on with me. Court is going to join us for some pretty good coffee and pretty good word. So if you are ready for a conversation between two sisters, and we're going to be talking about surrender, grab your coffee, grab your word, and let's get started. Okay, so as you can see, we have the first guest of 2022, and I brought my sister on, Courtney, and I'm going to let her introduce herself in a second, but I thought that she would be the perfect person to talk about surrender and submission and all of those things. If you remember, Courtney was one of the speakers for the very first Woman to Woman, and we are headed into Woman to Woman season right now. So it was like perfect timing to bring her back. So Court, introduce yourself to the girls.
So hi, I'm Courtney, and I have known Petra. I feel very old. I feel like it's like 15 plus years, but nonetheless, we met at University of Florida, and our relationship has grown since then. I'm so excited to be the first speaker for Pretty Good Coffee. And just so you guys know, I already have my Woman to Woman ticket, so I hope you do too.
Yes, be great. And she mentioned the Pretty Good Coffee, and I totally forgot to do what our coffee is this week. We're doing Dark Bark. This is, of course, from Maple Street Biscuit. Again, thank you so much for the sponsorship. I did this one and was really surprised by how much I love it. It's a medium roast, heavy body, which means that it's a denser taste. It has hints of smoke and cocoa. It's really good. It reminds me a lot of hot chocolate. I'm just going to be honest with you. So you heard me talking about it last week. I'm bringing it back this week. I absolutely love it. So if you are interested in a coffee that has a dense taste, it tastes like coffee, but is a little sweet, this is a really good one for you to try. Now that we've gotten the Pretty Good Coffee out of the way, let's do the Pretty Good Word as is left with me. So we are going to be chatting about Philippians 2:13. Philippians 2:13, and we're going to focus on this idea of surrender. Do you want me to read the scripture or you want to read it?
What translation are you reading?
I have CSB or NIV is the ones I was looking at. What you looking at?
I'm looking at the New Living Translation.
Okay, read it.
So
I haven't read that one.
So it says, "For God is working in you, giving you the desire and the power to do what pleases him."
I like that. So
I did.
So which one did you do? So you did NLT?
Yes, I did. Yes, which I just want to say it's because I really like it because I'm a King James girl. So the fact that I read this one means I like the way this one reads.
I was about to say, I like the way that reads. That really flows well because I'm a CSB girl. So I'm going to read that one and let's see how close they are together. So mine says, "For it is God who is working in you both to will and to work according to his good purpose."
I like it.
Okay, so we're gonna jump right in. So you guys have heard our preferred versions for Philippians 2:13, and we're talking about this idea of surrender. When you hear this scripture, what comes to mind?
To mind that God will help me to be able to do the things that he wants me to do instead of the things that Courtney wants to do.
That
they don't have to be mutually exclusive. Sometimes they are. And when they are, I need to lean on to what he wants me to do.
And I think that you said the big thing right there. It's about what he wants to do through us that he actually helps us with, right? Yeah. So it helps us to put aside our own wants, our own desires to take on his, to effectuate his glory.
Yes.
That's hard.
Very hard if you're type A.
Yes, which both of us are. Very, very, very hard. It's hard, especially like in seasons where you thought everything was coming together and then he throws a wrench into the plan and you're like, we ain't discussed that. We ain't discussed that, God. What are you doing? Like, we did not discuss that. And I think that this scripture is so good for that. He is working in you both to will and to work according to his good purpose, not just his purpose, but his good purpose. And the word says that everything works together for our
Good. Mm-hmm.
So even when we don't understand what's happening, even if it's not our personal wants or desires, it's a good purpose for us. Like he has mapped out this plan that does not make any sense to us, but we have to learn to surrender to it if we're actually going to get to the good.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Mm-hmm. It is. So I think that surrender, it goes along with obeying. And so, the Bible tells us that it's better, that obedience is better than sacrifice. Uh-huh. So surrender for me brings out a lot of the fruits of the spirit that God wants in us, that's sometimes hard for us. So when you're surrendering, it takes, depending on the situation, it takes selflessness to surrender. It takes you trusting God to surrender. It takes faith to surrender, especially when you were just saying that you're like, God, this ain't how I saw it. This ain't really what I signed up for. It takes humility to surrender because sometimes, at least me, I'm not going to put that on everyone, but you think, especially when you've gotten past to what you think is like a baby Christian, you're like, but I mean, this shouldn't be happening to me. Like, this ain't even the road that I wanted to take. This is not how this is supposed to play out. I've done ABC, like what is really going on here? And so it takes you stepping out and being like, it's not about who I think I am. It's about whose I am. And I'm going to let him take control.
I love that. I love that. It's not about who I am. It's about whose I am and letting him take control. So you're really talking about bringing your mind under subjection, not just your actions, but your actual mind, like regulating your mind to following after him, even though his thoughts are not our thoughts, his ways are not our ways, but bringing that into play. Like, okay, if this is what he has planned, I have to put my own thoughts to the side. It's not about who I thought I am or what I thought I bring to the table, even doing A, B, and C and doing them well. Because you talked about not being a baby Christian anymore. And so some things we perfected, right? Like, so we're not falling into the same snares that we may have been falling into 10 or 15 years ago. So like, look, God, I paid my dues. Look, player, I've done this. We're done with that. So don't do that. Right. Yeah. But it's really this reality that there is always going to be evolution. There's always going to be growth. There's always going to be stretching. And there's always going to be the reality that you do not meet his plan, but you have to trust his plan. Because that was one of the things that you talked about. Like, it's trusting God. Surrender is trusting God. Being obedient is trusting God to not leave you hanging when you go the distance for him. Like, that's literally what you're saying. Like, you have to trust him and what he's telling you is good.
Yes. Especially when it doesn't look like what you think it should.
Let's do that for a moment. let's do that for a moment, because all of us have an idea of our ideal lives.
Yes.
Our ideal accomplishments, our ideal bank accounts. like, let's be real. Like, we all have this idea, like our families, relation. We all have that. And when you really begin to really dive into your relationship with God and really into this idea of surrender, and then once you get past the idea and go into the action of surrender, the obedience that you were talking about, and he was like, yes, all of those plans that you were talking to me about late at night, we're going to do something else. We're going to do something else. And it's not to say that you won't attain those things, but perhaps the journey to them is not what you mapped out.
Yes. And I think that's when it's the hardest. Because that's when it's personal. You ever people ask you to pray for them, or they tell you something that's going on, and you have the greatest faith for someone else. Like that Hebrews 11:1 be way up here when it's someone else. Like, I mean, God got this, girl, we gonna pray. I mean, you calling on everyone, all the angels, tearing down the windows of heaven, all of this, when it's someone else, you got the ultimate faith.
Yes.
Ultimate faith. And then when it comes to you, it's like, wait a minute. It's really hard, to get that surrendering, to get that Hebrews faith. And I'm more of a Matthews sometimes, that little mustard seed, just a little bit. If I could just muster just a little bit, I'm going to get through this. So when your plans are the route, shall I say, to those plans is different, God is doing it differently than you saw, that is when it's the hardest to surrender. Because I think naturally as people, because we are believers, but we're people, we want to help ourselves get to the finish line. Yes. We don't want to just sit back. You want to do something to get there, physically something. And sometimes God puts us in places where all you can do is sit and just wait and just watch. Yes. And that is hard. That is when it gets very, very hard.
Y'all, that is the biggest understatement of life. It gets incredibly hard, but what I love about Philippians 2:13 is that it is saying that it is God who is within us and working in us to will and to work according to. He's the one that's giving us the stamina, the strength, the endurance to actually effectuate the plan if we'll surrender to him. So these things, so just like Court was talking about, we like to help God get to the finish line. We like to help him be God. We like to help him do the blessings. We like to do that, right? But we do that on our own volition, our own strength, our own stamina, our own endurance. Like we do that on our own. But the word literally says it is God who is working in you, both to will and to work according to his good purpose. So if you'll submit to him, he'll be the one to carry you through it. He's the one that will push you forward. He will make sure that you don't fail the assignment if you surrender to him. We're worried about not reaching the finish line or getting the blessing or leveling up or elevating or whatever it is that you've been praying about. You're like, if you would just surrender, I'll be the one to get you there. So these things that we're worried about and we're carrying, we were never meant to carry them in the first place.
Exactly. We have to, I would say if you think about God, like you think about your reputation, one of my mentors told me that your reputation will take you into rooms that your feet never enter. Mm-hmm. And so that's the same thing with God. He will take you places. Some of them you never wanted to go. I'm be candid with y'all. Some of them you never wanted to go to. However, he will take you to places that you never anticipated, that you never dreamed. And at the end of it, you'll be so much greater and so much more thankful and so much more prepared to help someone else when you surrender and let him steer it.
I think it's the last thing that I want to help somebody else. When you're able to surrender and get out of the way, he takes care of you so that you can help other people. You no longer have to worry about yourself. Those things that aren't coming together, those things will happen, but you have something left over for others. You're not having to take from your cup. You're not having to take from your portion. There's literally overflow for you to give to others. And I love that because it's almost like this idea, because when we do things on our own, we take from our own cup, our own portion. And so we're left in this deficit. We're tired. We're exhausted. Yes, sure, we may have attained certain things, but the reality is you can't fully enjoy them. But when you've surrendered to him and you've allowed him to do the work for you, it is him that is working through you to work and to will. If you let him do that, your cup is filled and it runs over into the saucer. And what's in the saucer is what you're operating from. This always remains full. This always remains full. It's almost like he thinks about both the provision for you and the people that are attached to you. If you'll surrender, Like there's so much more to obedience than just saying yes to God. There's so much more to it, like the actual act of submission, but then also the reaping of submission. There's something else that comes with that. And it's big. Reaping from submission is a whole lot more than a couple $100 in your bank account that you've been praying about. Because I've been praying about a couple $100, y'all. If y'all can't tell. Listen. This stuff that I have planned for y'all, for woman to woman, I've been praying about that bank account, okay? We're going to be real candid today. I have been praying about that, but God has really told me, it's like, don't worry about that. If you will continue to submit and surrender and to trust that being obedient is really going to be better than sacrifice, I'll overflow your cup into your saucer.
I think that's good. The key, what you said, the verb act, the act of submission. That's the thing, the act of submission, which, like you said, it's easy to say yes, and then don't actually say yes with your actions. Like, oh, I told God yes, I heard him when he said that, but then what did you do after that? You tried to bring that yes into fruition. That's not what he told you to do. He said, I'm going to do this. You said, yes, God, you're going to do it. I accept that. So let him do it, So let him do it. So let him do it. I think that's the thing. I think, with me, I have verses on my board at work that kind of like keep me grounded, depending on what I'm going through. And so when you're trying to surrender to God, reach for those verses that tell you that he's going to fulfill the promises. And you just repeat those when it gets hard, when you're the one that's trying to jump into what he already has going on. And you just keep them in your mind and you just repeat them. People do daily affirmations, daily meditation. We have to do daily verses, especially when things are troubling, or when we struggle with stuff. You have to remind yourself who he is and what he said he was going to do.
It's the reminding for me. It's because we have selective memory, big time, especially when that plan starts to go left. We have selective memory and we forget that there has never been a time that God has failed us. We start to act like the Israelites in the desert, if we're going to be real honest. Now, y'all know y'all got taken out of slavery. Y'all know this. Y'all know this little God is in front of y'all with fire and smoke and all stuff. Whole things that are supernatural. And somehow y'all forgot. How? Y'all just saw him this morning. But it's real. Because the minute the plan goes left, the minute we're reminded of our humanity, we forget the reaping of submission. We forget that. But the word says he's working in you both to will and to work according to his good purpose. It will always be good, even when it's left, even when it's hard, even when it is incredibly long and out of control and out of pocket. It will absolutely be good, but it is him that will do it. You just have to submit.
Yes, I think so. And I think when we focus on that, then maybe it won't be so left, because we talk about how it gets hard when it looks differently than what we want it to look like. But it says that it's giving you the desire and the power to do what pleases him. So if you're focusing on that, then what you want it to look like will start aligning up with how he's doing it. Your desires will change. I'm in a place right now with my career where I'm, embarking on a new position. But quite frankly, 3 or 4 years ago, I didn't even want this position. It's not anything that I would have applied to, but because things in my career went left to me. I started looking at things a different way. I started having different desires, and now I'm on a different route and embarking in a new position. And that had to be God, because I wasn't looking for it. I wasn't looking for it. So because I surrendered, because my career stuff wasn't happening the way I wanted it to, and I was like, oh, I got to leave this place. I got to run up out of here. All these type of things. He changed it for me. And what I thought was going left is the exact path that he wanted me on.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Submission brings about alignment. That's literally what you're telling us. Submission brings about alignment. It's not, and again, a shifting in perspective, because you're right. If you really submit to him, your perspective of what's left changes too. It changes. I like that. I like that a lot. And more than liking it, I think it makes the most sense. I think it makes the most sense, because again, we have to get out of this place of thinking from our place of humanity, right? And begin to think of it more so as we are created, right? And there's always purpose to the creation. Everything has purpose. Anything that is made has purpose, right? And so what does that look like? Everything has to come together for your good. Everything has to be worked according to his good purpose. Everything has to effectuate his glory in the earth. And so even if things look left, perhaps it's straightening out.
Yes.
Perhaps it's straightening out. Oh, I love this. This is probably one of the hardest topics, though. I'll be honest.
Yes.
But I thought it was good to start the year with.
I think so. No, I think so, because like you said, it's a hard thing to do. And it's something that we have to do quite often. Like you said in the beginning, his thoughts are not our thoughts. And because of that, we have to surrender quite often. How we say we have to die daily. That is surrendering.
Yes.
We have to do it so often because we don't understand. We're dealing with an infinite God. We only have finite thoughts. And so we just can't see everything. We can't see everything. We don't know what's behind this next door, what's behind this next hurdle, which is why we try to get into everything.
Yep.
And so we have to surrender so often. So I do think it's quite hard, and I do think it's going to be relevant for the entire year. As we continue to embark on life and travel down this road.
I agree. I mean, if there's something about last year that you didn't love, I'd put money on it that there's some areas you got to submit in.
Yes.
I put some money on that. And I think starting the year with this idea of submission so that you can get into the practice of submission is going to be really helpful, because Court is right. You're going to have to navigate life, but you're going to have to learn to navigate it in the back seat instead of the driver's seat. And that is hard to do, because we like to be passenger seat drivers. We
yes.
like that.
I am the one that my husband is driving and someone cuts in front of us and I reach over and beat the horn for him. Okay. That's me. So you already know what I'd be doing with God, and God be like, this little girl here, just be laughing at me.
Listen, which is why I said we don't have to be backseat drivers. You can't even get up there anymore. Forget being in the passenger seat. You about to be in the back seat. Yes. It's a thing. Like this year, as you're navigating, as you're growing, as you're evolving, as you're being stretched, as you're understanding the levels to harvest, because again, it is not just the reaping. Okay. So y'all need to let that go. It is not just the reaping. We're going to have to get rid of that idea. There is pruning, there is tilling, there's sifting, there's all these other things that go into it. The biggest thing that you're going to have to realize is that you will have to submit to the plan and the directive of God. And it will always be good for you, but you have to submit, because it will be hard for you if you do not. Yes. It will work together for your good no matter what, right? But it will be harder for you if you do not submit.
Yes. And so I don't want people to think, I don't want people to think that God won't do things that you want him to do in the way you want him to do it. Because he will. Yeah. But when it comes to times where he's not exactly doing things the way you think he should do it, or in the time that you think he should do it, that's when you need to remember, just like Petra was saying, that it's for your good. and that you need to, instead of praying, now we can always pray for things to change.
Sure.
Pray that, okay? That's a strong prayer. But make sure you add to that, God, if it doesn't, help me to navigate this. Show me what it is you want me to get out of this. Guide me. Show me what you want me to say, what you want me to do. Help me keep my feelings under submission. Help me change the way I see this, so that it's easier for you. And so that you are in alignment, like we talked about earlier, with him and the way he wants things to go.
I love that. I hope that you guys write down that prayer. I really like it's a thing. It's a thing because he can do whatever he wants when he wants to do it. But there are going to be moments when he has a very clear-cut plan that has nothing to do with what you like or don't like. It just is what it is. And so, like Court said, shift me from praying for this to go away and shift me to where I need to be, how I need to perceive it, how I need to deal with it, how I need to speak to it, how I need to navigate it. I think that that's good. I think that's good. I think it's a perfect way to jump off our week, to have that prayer, to hold to that prayer. My prayer is that you guys hold Philippians 2:13 in your hearts this week as you're navigating, as you're figuring out what that looks like for you, as you're planning out your year, because we're still in January. So a lot of y'all are still working on the resolutions. God bless you with that. Not doing that. Yeah, I don't do that. But God bless you. God bless you. So, but really hold this in your pocket. Really believe God. When he says that he will be the one to sustain you, he'll be the one to push you forward and to give you the endurance and the temperance that you need to effectuate his good purpose. Court, thank you so much for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. And again, guys, thank you to Maple Street Biscuit Company for sponsoring this month's coffee. We're doing the dark bark. It's really good. It's a medium roasted. That's what you're looking for. If you want the light roast, remember that's light amber. So give them a taste. You can order online or you can go into the store, whole bean or ground. They actually also have K-cups. Didn't know that, but they do. So be sure to check that out. And I hope that you have a wonderful week. Bye, pretty.
Boy.